You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Park Ranger Locked On Coogs here, and I wanted to talk some about the women's basketball coach situation. I held off on it last week for a couple reasons, but one, I was still gathering information about who could be a candidate and what directions they could go, and full disclosure, there are people much more plugged in on this than I am, and I'm reading and trying to DM, and I'll get some responses back and stuff like that, right? But Houston last week let go of Ron Huey, who I didn't know personally, but for everyone you ask, everyone you talk, like the reports, the way he talks about his players, was a fantastic human being that just was not having a whole lot of success as a basketball coach. And that's frankly why it sounds like he got to do this past year as his contract and kind of, got told he wasn't going to be renewed at the end of the season, so he resigned. And for what it's worth, there are a lot of places where being a great guy is okay and enough. And as Houston's moving towards a competitive program in the Big 12, like, hey, we need you to also win games, right? And that's the way the direction of the program's going, and so on. Huey, though, was he was really beloved by his players and so on, and he's out the door, and Houston moving on. And I see a lot of people saying, got to go get this guy. They got to go get this girl. They got to go with this person to replace him or whatever. And the first place I went to was, okay, what was Houston paying Ron Huey? Women's basketball is not the revenue generator that football is or anything like that. You got to kind of see, like, what does Houston have allocated, especially when you think about, like, having to pay players out of pocket and stuff like that. Like, what are they going to put into this? Huey was making mid $300,000 range as far as what his contract was on AAV. Big 12 coaches are typically making somewhere between the middle 50% is, between 700 and 800. The last year there was one making over $1 million. And frankly, I think she just got fired if it's the one I'm thinking of at Arizona State. And so I think that what you're seeing here, you're starting to see coaches cross that line by the end of their contract. And so I think they're anticipating things getting higher, but you're really looking at in the high $100,000s of dollars range, which is still 2 or 3 times what Houston was paying Ron Huey. So you still have to increase that budget a lot and get a competitive coach. And I think it sounds like they're going to do that. I will say, though, some of the names I heard people throwing out, like, let's go get so-and-so from such and such school. It's like that person's making $2.5 million where they are. The idea that you're going to pay them enough money to get them out of that job and into your job would literally multiply what you're currently paying a coach by over 10 times, right? And that does seem a little ridiculous. I don't know, we're quite to the point where we're jumping to that. Now, women's basketball is becoming more profitable. Frankly, I'm going to tell you, as a fan of basketball, when it's good, it's really good. Women's college basketball is a ton of fun. The national level, I think, has been exploding for a couple years now, but like UConn and Paige Beckers, Juju Watkins, I don't want to talk about UT Austin a whole lot, but like what Schaefer's done there has been pretty impressive. There's all kinds of fun programs to follow. TCU just did this, got a new coach, got a few transfers in. They won the Big 12 right away, right? Like Haley Van Lith's an impactful player, obviously, but that's a very replicable formula because you can do the same thing at Houston, right? And so I'm interested in following this along. I did a few people, got some names, looked at some of their contracts, kind of pulled some stuff up. I will say that I'm hearing different things from different people as far as like, will this be a high-end power 4 caliber, high-end assistant, second in command kind of thing? Will this be a G5 person with an impressive resume that moves up or whatever? The G5 person I like so far is Karen Aston. I'm still flipping through, trying to read more resume kind of information about different people, but Aston is at UTSA. She was at Texas early in her career, North Texas, on staff in Baylor in the 90s and 2000s. UTSA is at the top of the American Athletic Conference right now, and impressively so. And it's all turnaround based on Karen Aston. Play a fun brand of basketball, too, for what it's worth. That's your jam. They'll be in the tournament, so make sure you flip over and watch that one if you're trying to get an eye. Jason Burton has kind of had a quick turnaround at North Texas. Same kind of thing, right? The same G5 success that will translate. The thing I like about both Aston and Burton is they're in Texas already. As far as recruiting grounds go, you're going to recruit this thing from the ground up and rebuild it. They know the pipelines in the state of Texas and kind of have an idea what the talent will look like and where to go to get it. Obviously, it needs to be a step up at the Big 12 level, but they'll have every facility resource. I mean, everything the men's team gets from a facilities perspective, the women's team has as well. That works incredibly to their advantage. It's a program that has all of those kind of structural things built in already, and we'll have a true rebuild set up in terms of, like, we understand this starting from ground level. They won 5 games this year. Got to start from somewhere, right? People are talking about Kelsey Musick from Oral Roberts. She was a Division II national champion coach at Southwest Oklahoma State. I think I said that acronym correctly. Only been in Oral Roberts a couple of years. I think she'd be good as well. I think I like the basketball UTSA is playing more, if I'm being frank about what I asked. And so I think she'd be a great coach. I'm interested, if they're not going to go with one of these G5 people, though. Everyone's talking about the Texas program is kind of shot up to number 1 team in the country, or at least they were for a chunk of the year, whatever. And their associate head coach, Elena Lovato, was a noted recruiter in like the greater Houston region, and does a lot of this half of Texas for the UT women's team. She was the 2023 Division I women's basketball coach, assistant coach of the year. She got promoted to associate head coach there at Texas. And for what it's worth, it sounds like she would be next in line, except that Schaefer guy's not going anywhere. And so I imagine that that's a good thing for if she were to get a call from Houston, because she would look around, okay, this is a Big 12 job to really like build something fresh, great facility. I mean, great facilities for a women's basketball program. Again, like they share all the same things that the men do. The Jordan sponsorship deal helps sell itself as well. It's a basketball town, and the comments aren't around anymore, but like we saw the town get somewhat into that thing as well. And women's college basketball exploding in a way that it was not in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think that all of that is circling around to like the talent is in Houston to take and make a program. And Lovato would be the kind of person that could come in and see that as a thing to do. Also, that she'd want to build up a program to beat UT Austin, and that would sell pretty well here. And so I think that that's a good option there. I see people talking a lot about this Molly Miller. This would be a G5 person, but Molly Miller at Grand Canyon. I know it's a little bit out of order here. Sorry. She'd be the G5 person. For what it's worth, Grand Canyon won more games against Big 12 opponents this year than Houston did. And Molly Miller was the head coach there. Now, only has 1 season in her extensive career with less than 20 wins, and it was 18 wins in the 2020-21 season, which is shortened by COVID, right? So got to think she'd come in and get to that 20-win number pretty quick. I don't know how to put this politely. I don't think she's looking at Houston. I think she's probably going to, if I'm being honest, get like an SEC job, right? Very, very quickly. SEC. I mean, look at the top 25 women's basketball coach salaries. Only one of them was a Big 12 school. And again, I think that's the one that just got fired. So I say that to say that I don't know that they're going to have the pocketbook to get that one. I think they might, though, to get Lovato. And then I think they definitely will for Aston or Burton. I think all these are great options. I'm intrigued by other things as well. Kelly Harper was at Tennessee and kind of got a raw deal. She was on TV the last year. I can't tell if she's trying to get back in the coaching or not. But she was a all-time great coach at Missouri State, got to Tennessee and had 5 years there. And like my read on was she got fired because she like wasn't Pat Summitt, right? And so like no one's Pat Summitt, right? But anyway, but I also have people tell me like, oh, big names coming. And then I'm digging and looking and seeing who those people are. So if you got information, DM, comment down below. Let's talk about it. As more unfolds, more will come on this show. We'll talk about it more as it happens. I will say, though, however, ultimately, obviously, I bet nothing major happens until we're into the tournament a little bit, because the coaches they're looking at, frankly, are still working and coaching, and we don't want to do what Miami did and take a person away from their team mid-season. That team's pretty messed up. Oh, I said that out loud. Locked On Coogs, primarily Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Breaking things down this week, NCAA tournament. Keyshawn Henderson and the Houston Cougars football program he continues to shoot up the charts. spring practice around the corner. All kinds of things. Locked On Coogs every day. Locked On Coogs, remember Locked On Podcast. Your team every day. Go Coogs.